Welcome back to episode 171 of Tall Boy Radio. This week we have a couple of guests from over the pond again, and we're going to be talking music. We're going to be doing our best not to sing, but who knows where it goes when the beer flows. That rhymed actually. That wasn't really what I was intending. Before we get to the two guys who are joining us, let's say hello to our irregular who's joining us tonight. Gaz, there's no Dave. Say hello, dude.
Hello, dude. Hi, guys. Evening, the world. Looking forward to this. Look, it's been a while since we've had certainly one of our two guests on, and it's always an absolute pleasure when he joins us. And Ad, you're a poet. You just don't know it.
yeah, I am, as it turns out. Yeah, quite rightly so. So before we get to our two guests, I did say, and I want to promise, like, if you've been on our website, head to tallboyradio.com if you haven't. Go down to the bottom of the homepage, and there is a section there where you can send us an email, you can tweet us, or you can leave us a voice message.
Beans, Gaz, Andy, this is Bo. Do you guys actually read these things or listen to these things? Because I never hear anyone or you guys actually play this on the podcast. So I'm challenging you, if you hear this, if you'd like to, go ahead and play this all the way from Texas. Of course, I don't believe Andy's going to be there. It'll probably be a guest or maybe even me. Who knows? Take care, guys. Love the website.
The man's psychic. So the first guest is Bo. Had you had a few beers by any chance when you left us that message?
I don't. Yeah, I don't. I remember doing it a little bit, but I did. That was the first time I actually went to the website, and I saw that, and I was like, I wonder if they actually get these. And you were like, hey, man, you're the first person to ever leave us a voice message.
It's true. It's true. So you can also do it through our host as well, and our host, which is Spotify for podcasters. We've had a few left on there. All of those were by Dave. So if someone else wants to leave us a message, actually, it'd be really, really nice. So if you hadn't guessed, we're joined tonight all the way from San Antonio by my cousin Bo, and we're going to be talking music. And not only that, we're joined by a friend of his by the name of Kevin. Did you want to say hello?
Hey, everybody. Glad to be here tonight. Hopefully I have some barbs of wisdom. We'll see.
Lord only knows we need that on the podcast. So a while ago, we did an episode with Bo, actually, funnily enough, about movie remakes. We did another episode recently with Paul from Seismic Cinema about sequels. So we kind of talked about it there, about how you remake movies and what have you, and what our thoughts on that. So what we thought we'd do is do the final piece in the trilogy and do one about music and about music remakes. So before we do, obviously, you got two guys from the UK, two guys from the US. So I'd be interested in hearing a little bit about the kind of music you like and a little bit about the kind of music you listen to growing up. So Bo or Kevin, I don't know if you want to, whichever one of you wants to take it away first, and then we'll hear a bit about Gaz's taste in music a little afterwards.
Kevin, you can go first.
Oh, of course. Thank you.
Oh.
I grew up in the Deep South in Mississippi with my father, who is a Navy guy who was born in Alabama. And I didn't know there was any other music besides country music when I grew up. So I didn't realize there was anything available other than that until I joined the military. And I was stationed in Belgium for 2 years. And one of my roommates was a DJ from Brooklyn. One of the great things about the U.S. military is you generally end up getting put in and working close with and living with people from all walks of life you would have never ever imagined that you would meet. So he taught me all the club music that he used to play in the clubs. Brothers Johnson, all the rap stuff that was just coming out in the late 80s. So my views got way expanded beyond that. Right now, mostly it's what we call the dirt circuit in Texas music. Little known bands that you don't hear on the radio a lot. Those are the ones that I listen to the most, and most of that, of course, is on what do you call it? The music services that they have. I can't even think right now.
Yeah.
But anyway, moving on from them to old blues and old rock and roll from the 60s and 70s. Those are kind of my favorites.
Cool. So you spent some time in Belgium. That's pretty cool. So Andy, who's sometimes on here, the Viking, as Bo refers to him as, who you beat in the old drinking contest. Yeah, so he spent a little bit of time in Belgium as well. Funnily enough,
Okay.
He lived in Bruges for quite a while. Was it Bruges? No, Brussels.
I was in Florennes for 2 years, which way in the south near Givet, France.
Cool.
So that was really nice. I mean, I enjoyed it. I got to see a lot.
I bet. Yeah, it's a fantastic country, is Belgium. So, Bo, go on and tell us A, a little bit about how you know Kevin, and B, a little bit about your music taste and the stuff you listened to growing up and the stuff you listen to now.
Yeah, so Kevin, when I moved to San Antonio, he was one of the first people that I met. He was a trainer. He was a head trainer for police officers. He'd been doing it a very long time. And about 6 months later, I got a position working for him in the training department. So best job in the police department by far. Best boss I've ever had. So it was we just became very good. Slow down, pump your brakes. It was pretty amazing to be there. And, I pretty much owe everything that I have right now and I've done right now to, how he's kind of brought me along. As far as the music goes, he and I have a lot of the same taste in music. The one thing he would do every single day when I came into the office, he had a big speaker that was right there and it was playing music all day long. And of course, he's making up his own words to all the songs. And not that he doesn't know the words, but it's just a lot better when you're making up your own stuff, So I would spend half my day, laughing at what he was doing and the other half trying to catch up on work.
Fair play. So go on then, Gaz. Did you tell us a little bit about your music taste? You didn't there, did you? Sorry, I was going to go to Gaz. Well, I know. Well, here's the interesting thing. So when you talked about, was it the Texas dirt road music? I forget what it was called now. So you played me some of that stuff while you're over here, and although you say they might not be known outside of Texas, gee whiz, they had some views, didn't they? They're talking 10 million views on YouTube.
Yeah.
Some of them.
Yeah, that was one thing. Randy Rogers was one of the ones that I put on the YouTube for him, and he goes, "This guy doesn't leave Texas." I said, "Pretty much not. I mean, he might go, maybe to a show here and there." I said, "But it's just Texas." He goes, "How do they have 10 million views?" I said, "Well, Texas has got almost 40 million people, and Randy Rogers is a big name here. You don't even have to leave Texas to be big, in the state."
Yeah,
that's amazing, isn't it? Go on then, guys. Tell us. No, I dare. Well, mind you, you're going to give me some stick anyway, so I'll give you some stick now. Tell us a little bit about the music you listen to then, dude, and what you listened to growing up.
It's weird, really, because obviously our two guests said they have very similar sort of tastes in music. Mine and Adam's are probably completely polar opposites, I suppose. And no, to be fair, there's a couple of bands that I suppose through being friends with Adam, I sort of got listening to, and my music taste is very, very eclectic. I'm not one of these people who will only listen to a particular genre or particular type of music. If I like the song, irrespective of what genre it's from, I generally will listen to it. But I suppose growing up, I listened to a lot of Queen. They were the band that I listened to a lot. Night at the Opera, Day of the Races sort of albums were just brilliant albums. And then I think obviously the Wembley concert really got, when I saw that, I was like, wow, like Freddie Mercury was like amazing. He's brilliant, top front man, probably, well, I would argue possibly the best front man out there. Others will say no, it Elvis or Jagger or Prince or whoever it is, but sort of for me, Freddie Mercury was a bit of a genius. So I sort of grew up listening to Queen, and then strangely, my mum, so when she was with us, absolutely loved ABBA. So I've just got massive memories of listening to ABBA, which is random, and it's weird because like my youngest daughter now, who is 16, absolutely loves them as well. So I don't quite understand how that works. And she just waltzes around the house sort of singing ABBA songs, and it's weird. So I think it's that Mamma Mia sort of phase as such. So so I don't know, very eclectic. I mean, I could go from Guns N' Roses to Metallica to Queen to Simon & Garfunkel to Billy Joel to Al Green, literally like spectrum to spectrum. Just if I like a song, I like a song. I'm not one of these that it wasn't a massive, until I met Adam, wasn't a massive, particularly sort of massive indie fan. But I think through sort of being mates with Beans, I think he got me listening to a little bit more sort of indie, sort of, I suppose, your Manchester, Liverpool indie vibe. And Adam obviously will talk a lot about that sort of in a minute, because I suppose he's going to talk about a lot about sort of those bands. But yeah, I don't suppose I have a taste in. Well, Adam will say it's tasteless, but I don't suppose I have a taste in music. I just like songs, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does make sense. And I kind of get where you're coming from. I'm a little bit that way myself, but no. I listen to the Beatles, huge fan of the Beatles, still love the Beatles now. But yeah, the Manchester indie scene, and I guess it's probably one of those things that maybe Bo and Kevin will have experienced themselves. When you hit a certain age, it's the music at that time that helps define your childhood a little bit. It becomes the soundtrack to your teenage years and what have you. And we were very, very fortunate growing up to have the Manchester music scene happening literally on our doorstep. We're not a million miles from Manchester. So local bands like the Charlatans, which are originally from Northwich, which is just up the road from us. That was the first band I ever went to see. They were fantastic. Not a very big gig at all in Vicky Hall in Hanley. But yeah, absolutely blew my mind. Then on the likes of Happy Mondays, Stone Roses and Spiral Carpet, which might not mean a lot to our American guests who are listening there. And then obviously Morrissey, who I've seen in concert many, many, many times, and who's touring again. And I'm just dropping subtle hints to the wife that I might be buying some more tickets very, very soon to go see, even though it was only sort of September last year that I went to see him up in the heartland of Blackpool. So here's a question then for you guys before we get going, because Gaz mentioned Queen. Now, Queen are a huge band. You guys will be familiar with Queen. So outside of the US, Queen own all the rights to their own music. In the US, that's a different story. Do you know who owns the rights to Queen music in the US?
My first guess would be Michael Jackson, because he owns everybody's catalog.
Yeah. No, it's not Michael Jackson. I think he owns the Beatles, though, doesn't he? Yeah,
I was literally just going to say, I think he owns the Beatles. Yeah. And actually, I thought it was. I'm with you, Kevin. I thought it was Michael Jackson. Yeah. But I do know. Obviously, I know that he owns the Beatles back catalogue and stuff. So yeah.
No, it wasn't. What did you say? Sorry, Bo.
Oh no, I was going to say Michael Jackson, but my guess is going to be Joe Biden.
Yeah. And if he did, he wouldn't know anything about it.
He wouldn't know.
Well, funnily enough, actually, see, you all mentioned Michael Jackson. It isn't, but it is another guy who's famous for theme parks. Obviously, he had Neverland. So Walt Disney.
Really?
Disney owned the right to Queen music. Is that a bit weird?
Wow. Yeah.
That's a bit weird.
Yeah. How do you even get in that? I mean, I don't know.
Well, I know how Michael Jackson got into it when him and Paul McCartney were hanging out in the early 80s doing their covers. The first thing Paul did was advise Michael to go out and buy music catalogs, because, they, especially, for songs like the Beatles, they had live in infamy, as it were. They're going to be around forever. And Michael Jackson actually outbid Paul McCartney for the Beatles catalog.
Wow.
Which ended their friendship.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I can see how that might work.
Yeah. So we're going to do an episode then on covers, specifically, hopefully, on covers that are better than the original now. So before we do, you know me, I love my questions on here. What do you think is the most, and there's a couple of answers to this actually, because it's subjective. Which do you think is the most covered song of all time?
Oh, crikey.
Yeah, I'm going to guess it's probably a Beatles song.
You'd be guessing correctly.
It's probably incorrect.
No, you're correct. It is the Beatles.
Oh, correct. Okay.
Okay, Let It Be.
No. You need to think
Yeah.
a little bit more past tense.
Oh
Okay.
yeah, I've got it. Yeah, I've got it. If
Go
that
on.
was a clue,
It
was that a
was.
clue?
Yeah.
Yes, yesterday.
It
Ah.
is. Yeah.
Yesterday.
Yeah. Yesterday has been covered 2,200 times.
Wow.
Officially, so
Yeah.
you can go and purchase 2,200 different versions
Yeah,
of
yeah.
that song.
Yeah, I'm not talking about like us battling it out on karaoke in the plough back in the day.
Which nobody will pay money to listen to.
Not if they've got any sense. Unless they want to keep the birds off the lawn.
Or off themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that has earned not so much Paul McCartney as we've just heard, but Michael Jackson earned £30 million in royalties.
Wow.
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 That's crazy. That's crazy. So who was to go first? Then I'll chuck some questions in along the way. Don't you worry. Kevin, you're our guest. Tell us a little bit about a cover song that you enjoy the cover of more than the original.
Again, with my taste, and we're talking about popular music. In country music back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, if you belonged to a record label, you covered everybody else's songs on that record label. So that's how they kept the songwriters employed and kept paying their higher artists who were writing their own music. But so to go to pop music, I would guess one of my favorites is Respect by Aretha Franklin. I'm sorry, I'm going into vapor lock today for some reason. But the original was done by Otis Redding, which you can still find, but it sounds way different than Aretha's, and Aretha does a much better job.
Yes, she is famous for that song, isn't she? When you think of Aretha Franklin, that's literally one of the first songs that comes to mind. So
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting because like when I was looking into this, I had no idea that wasn't her who sang that originally. Did you know that, Gaza?
I did know that actually. And I'm with Kevin. I have heard both versions and much prefer the Aretha Franklin version. It's just synonymous with her, isn't it? That you say Aretha Franklin and that's what you think. But yeah, I did know that actually.
There you go. So here's a question then. So you mentioned one there, and you said it's very different. When you hear a cover version, what do you prefer? The ones that almost do a take for take, just add their own voice, or do you like it when people do something a little bit different with it?
Different.
It depends on how different.
Yeah. Okay.
To me, I'm most of the time I prefer original versions. But another song that pops to mind is it's gonna probably make you English guys a little upset, but the Kinks' "You Really Got Me" was covered by Van Halen, and I like the Van Halen version much better than the Kinks, though I don't dislike the Kinks version. So, but that's me. It really depends.
I don't know if I've ever heard that.
Really?
Yeah.
No. I know. I mean, I know the original, obviously, but
yeah,
I don't think I've heard the cover. No, I think when I say change, I like to see because to me, I think music is very subjective. So I like to see how artists interpret the lyrics, and maybe if they change it up a little bit, how that then might change the meaning of the song, because they might emphasize certain bits or certain lyrics. So I quite like the creativity of them changing it up. However, in a way, Kevin, I sort of agree with you as well. I think if you pay homage to somebody and somebody does a cover and the original is so good that actually it doesn't need changing, and it's just
right.
You just rebranded it maybe for a newer generation that maybe haven't heard the song, and you just bring it into a newer generation. I mean, so many times that you hear a song and my kids are like, oh, I love this song. So yeah, I remember the original. Like, no way, that's not cover. It's like, yeah, it is, because you don't, from years and years and years gone by, and
right.
But I think for me, whether it's not obviously not the lyrics. Although here's a question for you: do you have to change one lyric if you're making a cover? Is that the law or not? Because pretty much every single cover that you can think of, at least one word is changed. So it might be, instead of saying he, you say she if it's a female recording or a male recording, or instead of saying boy, you say girl or them or they, or I'm sure that in pretty much in every single cover, there's at least, and I might have made that up, and I don't know, but I'm sure you have to change at least one word.
I don't think
I
you
couldn't.
do. No.
I couldn't tell you.
I don't think it's the case. So if you head along to the Harry Fox Agency. Those are the people who and they will put you in touch with the people who you buy your music rights from. And it depends which country you're in as how much it's going to cost you. So in the States, the average is 9.1 cents for every copy sold. In England, gee whiz, we like to make a little bit more money out of it because we like to tax people to hell and back, and it's 10 to 15% in the UK. But once you have paid those rights, you can do whatever the heck you like with it, as long as you contribute any money that you've made. Interesting enough, actually, if you were to stick it on YouTube, so say tonight Gaz goes away and records Bohemian Rhapsody in the back of his car,
yeah, I'm buying it first.
Just like Wayne's World. I'd like to know what that cost him to do that, actually. But he could stick that on YouTube, and actually he doesn't have to pay 1 cent towards it. But basically, any money that he makes off of the back of that will go straight to them. They'll put a copyright claim in it, and he doesn't get to make any more money off of it. So that's roughly how it works in that respect. So what about yourself, Bo? Do you like it when they do something a little bit different, or do you like it just to be, you love the song, you love the tune. Let's just stick with that and see how it goes.
Yeah, so a lot of the times, you remember we were talking about movies before. If I hadn't seen the original, I didn't have an opinion. So a lot of times I don't know that it's a remake because I'm not a musical savant like Kevin. So I just don't know those things. But a story I got, because I played in the band for a while. The lead singer of the band, one of my good friends, says, "Hey, we're gonna play Tennessee Whiskey." And I'm like, "Cool, let's do it, right?" And so we start playing. I went, "What are we playing?" And he goes, "Tennessee Whiskey." And I went, "No." And I played it on my phone. He goes, No, we're playing the George Jones version, not the Chris Stapleton version that everybody fell in love with. I didn't know there was another one. Had no idea. So we were playing like the old country version, and then we switched over to the new one, and he just slowed it down. He bluesed it up. It doesn't even sound like the same song. I think Kevin has a story about listening to it for the first time, and he was like, "How do I know these words?"
Right?
Like, because they're words to a song that he knew, but he couldn't figure out why he knew them.
Till we got to the chorus.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's one of the ones that really kind of threw me back a little bit, but I do like the Chris Stapleton version. I don't like it really when they change them up too much. I have heard several people change, because I know a lot of the words, and they change the words in it or whatever. But I don't think it changes the meaning of the song for the most part.
I can give you another example real quick.
Sure.
All Along the Watchtower.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bob Dylan wrote it and sang it, and then Jimi Hendrix did it.
Yeah.
So you're talking worlds apart difference in variations on the song. So
yeah,
Bob Dylan, I you have to pay that respect to who he was and where he came from, especially when he first went electric. But I'm not a huge fan of his, but I do like the covers that Jimi Hendrix has done, and everybody else. I think everything he ever wrote has been covered 400 or 500 times.
Yeah, you might be right. Hey, interesting enough, that is, for me, is one of those covers that I noted down that I absolutely love. I do quite like Bob Dylan, to be honest. I've got nothing against the original. However, that Jimi Hendrix version is just nothing compares to it. It's absolutely phenomenal. It blows you out. The guitar work in it is, in itself, as you'd expect with Jimi Hendrix, is absolutely beautiful in that record. And yeah, it makes it absolutely his own. It is one of my favorite records anyway. But interestingly enough, and it's funny you mentioned that one, the first version I ever heard of that was, I heard the Jimi Hendrix one before I ever heard the Bob Dylan one. What about you guys?
Same thing. I like to I've always liked to see where music comes from. So, and again, being in the military, like I had the DJ in my room. I had another guy who was into the Psychedelic Furs and the Smiths and the Bodines and those guys, Then, there was the same time in the late 80s where you had the second English invasion, Pet Shop Boys and Soft Cell and those groups coming over, Kajagoogoo. And so I had a whole room full of music that I was being introduced to at the same time. So when you had these kind of conversations, you always, oh, you didn't know Jimi Hendrix didn't do All Along the Watchtower first? Oh, let me hook you up with this Bob Dylan version.
Yeah.
So I got to learn a lot about what I like in the different versions of songs and all just through that experience.
Do you think that, I suppose, depending on which version is the first that you hear, that's the one that you prefer? So if you were to hear the Bob Dylan version and then the Jimi Hendrix, and I know Adam said he loves the Jimi Hendrix, and I prefer the Jimi Hendrix version as well because it's a phenomenal cover. But I wonder whether or not the majority of people will say it's actually the version they heard first as opposed to the original. Whereas if you heard the original and then somebody covers it, you go, yeah, it's not quite as good though. And I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there. I don't know. I mean, the Jimi Hendrix one is the exception, possibly, because that is better than the original. I don't think there's any doubt about that, really. But
I think you might be right there. No, it's interesting. I think you might be on the money there, because when you hear a song and you love it, you get accustomed to it, and then you hear the original version, because this is a cover that you've heard the first time around. You don't always know that, and almost it doesn't sound quite right to you. You know what I mean?
It doesn't sound quite right. Maybe there's a different note that the cover hits, and you're like, oh, that's amazing, and then you go back to the original side. Well, they don't quite hit that note, and they hit something else. It just doesn't quite sound the same. And I wonder whether you are influenced as to which one you've heard first. Maybe, I don't know.
No, you could be right. Like Bo and his Tennessee Whiskey there. You know what I mean? He heard the version he was listening to. Was it the original you were listening to, or was it a cover that you were listening to?
No, I was listening to the cover by Chris Stapleton. And if you Google Tennessee Whiskey and you play it, and you play the George Jones version first, and then play the Chris Stapleton, you'll be like, is this the same song?
Yeah.
Because all the word, write it down.
I'm writing it down.
Write it down. So is this the same song? Because he slowed it down and blues it up, and you wouldn't even think that it was even the same thing.
Wow.
That's cool. I'll tell you what then, while we're talking Bob Dylan covers, then we'll ask Gaz, because you mentioned Guns N' Roses. I don't mind a bit of Guns N' Roses myself. And Bo, you guessed an episode that we did about Guns N' Roses. Knocking on Evan's door then, Gaza.
Yeah, decent. And that falls into the, am I a massive Guns N' Roses per se fan? Maybe. Do I like? Maybe not. Do I like 3 or 4 of their albums? Yeah. So Use Your Illusion 1, 2, Appetite for Destruction. Just, I've said it before. Spaghetti Incident should never have even been written. It's horrendous. But I don't know. Oh, it's a tough shot. That is. Maybe the Bob Dylan. Maybe.
Interesting. So that was from a film. That was from Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, wasn't it? The Sam Peckinpah film. It's a gem of a tune, but I prefer the Guns N' Roses version. I've got to tell you, and it probably goes back to when did he do it for the Freddie Mercury gig? Was that where I heard it?
Could have been. Yeah, the tribute. Could have been. Yeah.
Yeah, the live version he did there is fantastic. But when you mentioned Spaghetti Incident, Gaz, saying it should never have been written, well, it was written way, way, way before Guns N' Roses ever did it, because that's an album full of covers.
Well, yeah, but they shouldn't have. Yeah,
they shouldn't have done it.
They shouldn't have done it. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah. Well,
what about you guys then? So sorry, Bo and Kevin, what are you on the Knocking on Heaven's Door then? Are you the original, the Bob Dylan, or are you the Guns N' Roses version?
I could see Kevin's face. Go ahead.
I'm not a huge Axl Rose fan. I don't think he can carry a note in a bucket. I just don't. And if he says hey, 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 hey 4,000 or 5,000 times in that song, I'm not a fan. I'd much rather listen to Bob Dylan sing The Phone Book than Axl Rose sing anything.
I like Kevin. Don't show offense. Just jump right in. I like that.
Yeah, he didn't leave us in any doubt there, did he?
Yeah, didn't leave us wondering, did he? Just straight in there, yeah. Axl Rose is full of shit. Should never, I like it. It's good.
I'm not even going to answer. We're gonna skip subjects right after that one. That was a mic drop.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So I'll throw it back. Adam, just throw it back at you. Sorry, I'm just because obviously we mentioned one that is there in terms of a cover that you feel is better than the original, because obviously you threw it out there to sort of Kevin and to Bo initially, so I'll throw it back to you. Is there a song that you feel as though the cover is massively better than the original, or one that you got on your list or anything like that?
Yeah, there is. I'm like I say, funnily enough, Jimi Hendrix was on there, but there's another one. Like I said at the very the start of this episode, I love the Beatles. There's few bands I can listen to more than the Beatles. I have the Beatles on a lot at home. Sorry, I have my kids listening to it because it's a great part of English heritage as well. We're recording this on St. George's Day. It's a great part of English music and how they changed the face of music itself. And one of the most famous albums they recorded, obviously, Sgt. Pepper's, and on there, with a little help from my friends, which is obviously sung by Ringo, which is nobody's favourite Beatle, God bless him. But Joe Cocker covered that song. And he made that his own. And that, for me, is far, far superior to the Beatles version. Don't get me wrong, musically, the Beatles version is okay. But Joe Cocker's version, you would think that was Joe Cocker's song. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that version.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on it? Am I alone on this one?
Joe Cocker does do an amazing version. I don't know. I'm going to be completely opposite to Kevin. I'm going to sit on the fence on this one, so I'm not 100% sure. It's hard for me to decide, because then you say, no, the Beatles were. No, but Joe Cocker's was really good, but then it's the. So I'm straight down the fence there. I can't make my mind up on that one.
Wow, not expected. Kevin, you must have an opinion.
I'm with him. I'm right on the fence. It's not one of my favorite songs, regardless. So, both of them I think did an adequate job with the song.
Yeah.
Fair play. Here's a question then for you then. So we talked about the most covered song, but actually, what is the most expensive rights? What's the most anybody's ever paid for a song, do you think? Just one song. What's the most expensive song in terms of rights?
What, in terms of sort of wanting to cover it and?
Yeah, so if you were to cover it, more really, because I don't suppose too many people have recorded a version of it, but it's more used in movies.
Are you talking about the cost to just use the song, or the total cost in using, how much it made?
So you see, you've uncovered my little scam here, Kevin. Yeah. So yeah, it is. It's the total cost that this recoups on an annual basis. And actually, Warner Chappell, who bought the rights to this way back in, I think 2010 was the last time it changed hands, paid $15 million for the rights for this one song.
Right,
I'm gonna shoot shot in the dark.
Go ahead.
I Will Always Love You.
No.
Although, there you go. So what? Just while we're on that, then, Dolly Parton or Whitney Houston? Which one then?
Mm-hmm.
Which do you prefer?
Dolly.
They're almost.
I'm going to say the most expensive song. The most expensive song ever is going to be "Happy Birthday."
Dude, you've nailed it. You absolutely. Honestly,
is that right?
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah. $2 million a year that brings in, because it's used in so many films and TV shows. My next clue is going to be, I guarantee somebody sang this to you, but I was a bit worried when Kevin said, "I Will Always Love You." Who knows who sung that to me?
Right.
So we're going about the Happy Birthday, or we're going about the Stevie Wonder version, or not? Which one are we talking about?
The one that you will have sung many, many times. The one you'll have sung to you at least 50 times on the 7th of July this year.
Okay, it makes sense.
It's bizarre though, that, isn't it? Really,
It
when you
is
think
bizarre.
about it, yeah, it was
Yeah.
just it was made up. It was made up by I think like nursery school teachers.
Mm.
So they had sort of way of celebrating. It was that they could celebrate with everybody when it was the kid's birthday. And it's just gone on from there. You know, so I think it was I can't remember it was 1912 or 1922. It's been knocking around since. But that's utterly bizarre.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wouldn't expect that.
I just remember someone saying that it was like that's a song that's around the world, and I didn't know anybody actually owned the rights to it.
No.
Because how exactly could they collect other than it's being in a movie, right? So I sing it, Kevin sings it. They're not getting anything off of us. Imagine if they could.
Well, yeah.
I have a feeling.
Well, I'd quit singing it.
Yeah, I would. I'd have a feeling Warner Chappell would give us money to stop singing.
Right. Maybe you, but
No,
I don't know.
Maybe about it.
I'm feeling pretty good after random karaoke night last night.
Oh, you did? Yeah, you sent me some pictures about what a karaoke night in Texas. You missed out on that one, Kevin.
Right, 24 hours.
I did.
It's not quite 24 hours, but we played. So it was our last Super League Darts fixture on Thursday, so our last home fixture of the season. So we had a random sort of bit of an impromptu sort of karaoke, and I haven't sang karaoke for absolutely donkey's years because I can't sing, so that's probably why. But I ended up singing Kenny Rogers and the Gambler. So that was the song that I actually sang on, which is one of my favourite songs, to be fair. So I ended up singing. I think there's a video going on somewhere, not to be shared. A with beans and B on this podcast.
Because if I get hold of it, it will.
Because if you get all of it, Christ knows where it'll end up.
I'll have a word with Chris Pyatt. I'm sure he'll sort me out.
He probably would as well, yeah.
So then, guys, it was gives another example of a cover that they've either loved or absolutely hated, or that somebody's changed the context of it entirely. Who wants to chuck one out there?
I've got. It might not mean that much to Bo or Kevin, but the Amy Winehouse Valerie is much better than the Zootons, the original. So the Amy Winehouse Mark Ronson sort of collaboration is streets ahead of the original version. And I don't know whether you guys sort of over in the States are familiar with that, but Beans is sort of nodding, so I'm assuming do you agree with that? Yeah.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
you guys familiar with that song?
I'm vaguely familiar with Amy Winehouse. Heard her song, was it Rehab?
Yeah.
Several times, but the rest of her catalog I'm not that familiar with.
Right. Yeah. She did a other than Rehab, I suppose it possibly is her most famous song, and that was a cover. The original band was a group called the Zootons, and the original's okay, but again, Amy Winehouse and Mark Ronson sort of changed it up a little bit, and it just sounded like so much better. Like actually, that song is probably synonymous with her now, as opposed to the Zootons, I suspect. But
yeah, I would say so. And this is the interesting thing having you two guys on there, because growing up in the UK, we listened to a lot of American music growing up as well. You know, Tina Turner. No, Tina Turner, is she American? She's American. Can't remember. Bruce Springsteen. Yeah. Bruce Springsteen, the likes of that sort of growing up. But I thought it'd be very interesting to get you guys on when we talked about this, because, you know, when we're talking about a song like that, which is absolutely huge over here, and I could sort of tell by the expressions on your faces that it didn't mean an awful lot to you. And I find the juxtaposition between that quite interesting as well, despite the fact that we think that the two countries aren't that dissimilar. Actually, there is a great disparity, especially when it comes to music taste. But like I say, it blew my mind when Bo was putting these tunes on from Texas artists that I'd never heard of that had millions and millions of views. So go on, guys, chuck one out there that we may not have heard of, but we should definitely go and seek out if it's a cover.
Well, here's one for you. You were talking about changing words and meanings of songs. Hound Dog, that was recorded by Elvis, was originally done by Big Mama Thornton. And it was a blues version from the 50s. And if you listen to her version, she's talking to her husband or her man and telling him, why are you sneaking around my house after staying out all night and carousing and all these other things? And Elvis appears to be actually singing about a dog. So it's two completely different versions of the songs, different words, different meanings. You can see where Elvis's version came from, but it's nothing like the original.
Wow, I'm gonna have to root that one out. I've never heard of that song. I kind of guessed that. I know Elvis did do a lot of covers in his early days as well. So, like you say, a lot of those people when they were recording in Tennessee, they recorded everybody else's songs, didn't they? So yeah, I did wonder, but wow, no, I never knew that. Just go on. Sorry.
Colonel Tom Parker, who was Elvis's manager, wouldn't let him record a song he didn't own. I Will Always Love You by Dolly Parton. They approached Dolly about buying the song, and she was like, I don't sell my songs. And they said, well, Elvis won't sing it if you won't sell it. And she said, well, I'm sorry, but I'm not selling my song. So
I'd love to hear Elvis sing that as well.
Well, you can't now, but
or can we? Who knows?
Yeah.
Because Kirsty MacColl sang a song like Elvis being a milkman down her street. Because there's always the rumors that he didn't pass away in '77, that he lived on. Have you ever seen the Bruce Campbell movie Bubba Hotep? Maybe don't watch it, folks. No, actually, it's quite good, but I don't believe it to be factual. So just before we move on to yourself, Bo, here's a question, because Gaz mentioned it at the start there about Freddie Mercury being the greatest frontman of all time. I'd just be interested to get you two guys taking it, especially given the fact that I know you both spent a lot of time in Mississippi, and obviously Elvis was from Tupelo, which obviously not too far away from Nelson, Bo. So yeah, I'd be interested in your take on who you think is the greatest frontman of all time.
So yeah, frontman. I don't know if I have a favorite. Yeah, it's tough. I don't know if I have a favorite, but for the most part, I think that America has very good frontmen, and the UK has very good bands. I think it's different. I think the band together in the UK is better. We in America will get somebody who knows how to do something, sing, and and then they'll just put a band around them, and nobody knows who the band is. No one gives a shit. It's always about the dude But when you're talking about the UK, you know who the drummer is, you know who the bassist is. They get together and they all kind of do the band thing together, and you know who they are, and they're always part of the writing and all that kind of stuff. Most of the bands in America are just put together. Hey, this guy plays a mean steel guitar, throw him in there. But they're just band members, and the guy in the front is actually the guy.
It's interesting that, but I think a lot of and this is interesting with Queen as well, because although you do know sort of Brian May, John Deacon, and Roger Taylor, is that the other one? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I mean, famous in their own right, but sort of wallflowers in comparison with Freddie Mercury. He put himself out there. From Brian May, very introverted character. John Deacon, very, very, very quiet individual. Roger Taylor looked strangely good in a dress in the video that he did.
I want to break free.
Down, dude.
Yeah. Oh dear, yeah. That's going to be snipped out for that podcast. So yeah, but it's interesting though, isn't it?
Yeah. So what were you going to say, Kevin, in terms of your frontman?
My favorite frontman is Paul Rodgers. Love to hear that man sing. When he was with Bad Company and was it Free before that?
Yeah.
Did a fantastic job. He's got such a great voice. I was disappointed, in the early 90s or late 80s, early 90s when Bad Company reformed with a different singer. And I can't even tell you who that was. I mean, the music was okay, but, it's hard to replace a voice like Paul Rodgers.
Did he from Queen? I mean, obviously after when Queen reformed and then toured, did he front them? Because obviously Adam Lambert is doing it now.
He did.
I'm sure he did. I'm sure he fronted some for Queen as well. Yeah.
He did, yeah. And same yourself. I love Free. Listen to that sort of growing up. I love that band. My Brother Jake is absolutely one of my favorite songs of all time. you know, I've got a little lad called Jacob, and he has a sister, so it is her brother Jake, and I quite like that little connection there between the two of them. But yeah, I totally agree. That's an interesting one, actually. I didn't expect you to say that. Didn't expect you to say Axl Rose after what you said about him earlier. No, I mean, in terms of frontman,
there's more to a frontman though than just the ability to sing. Like, do I think Axl Rose has the charisma and everything else? Absolutely. I just don't think he can sing. Yeah. David Lee Roth, who played with Van Halen for years, I don't think was a good singer. Sammy Hagar was 3 times a singer, but Sammy wasn't the showman that Dave was. So I think you get a little bit of that. But I do agree, you know, with Queen, he was a full package. He was everything. The guy could sing. He was a good leader, good showmanship, stage presence. He did it all.
Yeah. I love Queen, and I think when they did the Live Aid concert, you know, even for non-Queen fans, that 15 minutes, whatever he had, 20-minute segment he literally had the whole of the audience just eating out of the palm of his hand, and he played them, and he goes through his little riffs and his runs, and for the whole of that set, it was just a phenomenal sort of 20 minutes, and he literally he played them like a maestro, you know, and it was just I suppose a defining moment, really. And obviously there were loads of Queen fans have said, "See, told you," sort of thing. That's what he is. But I think that drew quite a lot of new Queen fans that then went back and started listening to the old back catalogues and that sort of stuff, because you listen to some of the older stuff, and it is fantastic. Like some of the slightly lesser known tracks, but you know, just brilliant albums, really well crafted. Don't get me wrong, there's a couple of absolute turkeys in that sort of thing, but you know, generally speaking, you know, the really well crafted sort of albums. So I thought Freddie Mercury was brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, he was definitely a character. I'm going to talk one out here there just quickly, just because it ties in very, very closely with what Kevin said. So Kevin mentioned the big Mama Thornton song there that it was totally changed in context. So Cyndi Lauper, Girls Just Want to Have Fun. You all heard of that song then, yeah? Mm-hmm. Did you know it was a cover?
I did. I can't put my finger on who sang it first.
Yeah, it's interesting. It might be a little bit more known in the States than it is in the UK. There's a guy by the name of Robert Hazard sang it first. And it wasn't hugely different. It had that 80s pop feel to it. But it sang in an entirely different context. So obviously Cyndi Lauper took it, made her own about girls having fun, where actually it was sung by a dude who was just singing to his dad and his mum while he'd been out all night. But hey, girls just want to have fun. That's why I ain't been home. And that blew my mind, actually, because when I listened to it, and it's a bloody awful version, if I'm really honest. It ain't a good song by any stretch of the imagination, but it's a totally different context. And listen to that song. In my mind, it only ever had one context. So I thought it was quite interesting. Same, interestingly enough, as Hound Dog, you know, when you look at it in that respect. Yeah. Go on.
One of my other favorite covers that I like is Proud Mary, because CCR and then Ike and Tina Turner, their version, it's night and day, you know. Even the beginning when it starts off slow for Ike and Tina Turner, and then goes into a super sped up version, is still good. I like them both equally. I like everything CCR ever did. Yeah, excellent band.
I don't profess to know the original. The Ike and Tina Turner version is a great track. It just the way that, as you said, the way that it builds through the track, and it starts off really slow, and you can feel like, and particularly Tina Turner, who was just this explosion of energy and stuff, but you could tell that as the song builds, she almost can't wait for that explosion, and then for it to then, and you start, you know, throw down some stuff, and it was that's it is a good shout. I mean, I don't know the original. I'll be honest, but the Ike and Tina Turner, it's a decent song, decent track, definitely.
Yeah, funnily enough, I'm not familiar with it. I love Creedence Clearwater Revival. I heard a lot of their stuff, probably, you know, obviously not nearly as much as yourself. And when I think of them, I always think of Bad Moon Rising. That for me,
Yeah.
I love that tune. Can you imagine anybody covering that? Can you imagine Axl belting that one out?
No, God, stop giving him ideas.
Actually, if you're listening, hands off.
Yeah.
I was absolutely appalled when he started singing lead for AC/DC. I'm like, that's Brian Johnson. You can't replace Brian Johnson with this guy. You know, they might as well have gotten what his name, Adam Levine.
Oh, yeah. He was. Yeah.
So here's an interesting one, because, and I hadn't heard it, and it sounds really cheesy, but it's sort of in context. So Bruce Springsteen, and there was a guy, and he was on like, it was a talent show or whatever it was, and he did a really stripped back, slow acoustic version of Dancing in the Dark, and it blew my mind, and I hadn't heard it sang that way at all, and it literally is like just completely stripped back, and it's really slow, and I remember listening to it, and I'll have a little search for it in a minute, and if I can find the name. But I mean, if you search for it, there's lots of other people done acoustic versions and stuff like that. It was the first time that I heard it done in that way, and it was a proper sort of goosey moment. I'd listened to it, and I was like, that's like, and it's this quite soft male singing voice, and he's just there, and he's just got just a guitar, and it's stripped back, and it's like, wow, like incredible almost, and that was like goosey. And I don't mind some of Bruce Springsteen's. My wife hates Bruce Springsteen. Says he's got the most monotone voice out there and just can't sing at all. Similar to, suppose, what you're saying, Kevin, about Axl Rose. My wife thinks Bruce Springsteen can't sing, can't hold a note, tone deaf, hates him. I actually don't mind him. But yeah, that stripped back, real slow acoustic version is a great cover.
For me, Bruce Springsteen did one of the best Super Bowl halftime shows I've ever seen. Man, I struggled. You know, I think the Who did it the following year, and it was pretty good. If it wasn't for they did basically every tune that you used at the start of CSI, which was unfortunate. But but they've done some great tunes. It's just sold out, unfortunately, with where they've been used since. But no, man, Bruce Springsteen at halftime. I didn't want that. I forget the two teams who were playing. I didn't want to come back out. I wanted to hear more of that. They were phenomenal.
Yeah, I think he's decent. And there's a guy that I played darts with who literally adores the guy. Like, can't, a bit like you, Morrissey. Literally, he's like, just loves the guy. Gone through that whole sort of double denim look sort of thing and all of that, and just literally like idols the ground he walks on sort of thing. So yeah, and I'm not quite to that extent, but I don't mind it.
Interesting.
I'm actually a little confused though, Beans. I'm a little confused.
Go on.
Because, you know, you talk about a whole lot about all these bands and all these people that you like. But when I was there, I didn't hear anything but Morrissey. I thought he was the only person that was singing in the UK at the time. Because you didn't play another person the whole time I was there. I don't remember another song from. Then again, I was drinking heavily. So,
but why do you think I now podcast from home and I don't go over to Beans? Because I am sick to the back teeth of Morrissey. Literally, like, I don't put him on and I don't hear him. I open my window and he's got Morrissey blasting out.
God.
And it's like,
God.
you see, just, and for me, he's one of the most morose individuals. He's just dirge, but Adam loves him. And we have this regular, probably weekly argument as sort of, is he decent, is he not? So it's one of those.
Yeah.
We actually named our female cat Morrissey because it was different.
Yeah, which just recently gave birth. The cat, not Morrissey, just to be clear.
Yeah. Right. There's some other Morrisseys out there. Yeah. But what was funny was when Kevin was over, I said, hey, there's Morrissey right there. And he's like, I'm surprised you know who that is. And I was like, what's my cousin's, favorite singer? He's like, well, I mean, I know they're part of the Smiths. And I was like, holy shit. Like, you already know 100% more than I do.
Yeah. My favorite album, Strange Ways, Here We Come.
Yes. Yeah.
Girlfriend in a Coma. Come on. Who doesn't like that?
Exactly. It is. I tell you what, if anybody out there is not listening, yeah, he
Come on.
doesn't. He doesn't like it. He doesn't like it. But and interestingly enough, so the room that Bo stayed in when he stayed here, there is a framed version of that on the wall, and it's been signed by every member of the Smiths as well. That is my pride possession, which I keep away from Gary just in case he trashes it. Adds a fifth signature. No, it's funny you say that. So when I was going to come on to a little bit actually, so it seems appropriate to talk about it now. So when you have an artist that you absolutely love and admire, and I do, I know Gaz takes the Mickey and Bo does take the Mickey as well. I love Morrissey. Do you know what I mean? He's somebody he's literally, his music sings to me. I think he has an absolutely fantastic voice, a beautiful lyricist, quite a showman in his own way, but theatrical, I think, was the way that Bo described it. It was probably the politest way of putting it. And I love it. I love seeing him live. I love going and see not just what he has to say with his music, but the little bits that he puts in between and what he has to say. Phenomenal. It is a truly, truly unique experience seeing Morrissey in concert. However, when I hear songs covered that he sang and he wrote, there's very, very few that I don't switch off. Interesting enough, so Gaz mentioned Mark Ronson. So Mark Ronson did an album of covers and with people guesting on it. I don't know who sang the version on that, but stop me if you've heard this one before. Was a Morrissey song which features on there, or a Smith song, sorry, that features on there. I don't mind that one. So there's a few that I don't mind. There's interesting enough, like Spanish versions of it. There's quite a few of those. He's very big in the Hispanic community, and there's a band called Mextracy who do his music to mariachi music. So I tell you, they're really good. They're really good. But do you find that if you have one artist that you absolutely love and admire, Gaz, say for example, Queen covers of Queen songs, love or hate?
Yeah, hate really. It's just not the same, is it? That's the problem, I think. And in a way, that's why I don't mind covers, because I suppose other than Queen, I like lots of different types of music and genres. So if there's a cover, it's like, okay, fair enough. But for me, yeah, like covers of Queen songs. I mean, you saw some of them in the Freddie Mercury tribute concert, and I know they were doing it because they were paying tribute to him and stuff. But some of those are goddamn awful, and it's just like, it just doesn't sit right. I suppose the same with you and Morrissey, as you said, Smith stuff thing. It just doesn't sit right. But then you'd get, you'd get Billy Joel fans, or you'd get Kenny Rogers fans, or you get, and they'll turn around and go, no, you should never cover one of them. And it's just what you like, I suppose, isn't it? And if you have that one defining artist that you absolutely love, then to you, they're on that pedestal and nobody can touch them, and therefore nobody should ever cover one of their songs, because it's just sacrilege to do so, because you'll never do it justice. Do you know what I mean?
Indeed. What about you two guys? If you got any artists that you just think, no, he should not be covering that? Kevin, Guns N' Roses?
Should never have existed in the first place, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That was don't know if you guys know this, but Tracy Guns, who had LA Guns back in the 80s, it was Tracy Guns and
Axl
yeah, they got together to create Guns N' Roses.
Yeah.
And then he ended up going his own way. But yeah, they should have never existed.
What about Velvet Revolver?
Oh,
no.
wow.
Love Velvet Revolver.
Right.
Slither?
Yeah.
But you can't take anything away from Slash or Duff McKagan or any of those other guys that were in that band.
No.
The band was tight. Izzy
Yep.
Stradlin, all those guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't like the way he sings. He can't sing. He's screaming all the time.
Yeah. Screechy.
You were talking about covers of Queen songs. And I don't know if you guys have ever heard this version, but Dwight Yoakam did a cover of Crazy Little Thing Called Love.
Mm-hmm.
It's not horrendous.
Okay.
But it's way different than I expected, because it's one of those songs, that's going through the playlist and whatever pops up, and this song popped up, and I was like, holy crap. Dwight Yoakam singing Queen. So that surprised me. I don't know if there's ever anyone. I think there are songs that I don't think should ever be sung. Killing Me Softly, Roberta Flack, I think is one of those songs that is just so unique, and the version is what it is. Nobody should ever attempt it. But the Fugees did it.
The Fugees did it, and I didn't mind the Fugees version. Forget the little rap bit and stuff, but I didn't mind the Fugees version. And I mean, Roberta Flack that is an amazing song. But it's strange because when you talked about covers, I did look at that one and I thought, actually, I don't mind the Fugees version. I mean, Lauryn Hill's got a fantastic voice, and she does it. She does it really well. I'm not a fan of that one time. I'm not a fan of that. But the actual sort of her version of that song, I actually didn't mind. But yeah, the Roberta Flack is brilliant.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. Interesting. I'm kind of with you on that.
And the what's that?
I was just saying I agree with Kevin on that. I'm not a big fan of.
Oh yeah. So one of the songs that I heard, again, I didn't know it was a cover song. I thought Johnny Cash wrote "Hurt" because he was getting so old, and it just sounded all kind of like, "Hey, this is my last song," And when he sang it, I was like, the song, it just, to me, it was like, "Hey, this guy ain't gonna make it too much longer." Like he had so much emotion in it, and to find out it was a Nine Inch Nails song, I was like, really?
Yeah.
Like I had no idea until somebody else, I didn't listen to a whole lot of Nine Inch Nails, but it was probably one of the best remakes, I guess, that I could, only because I felt like he felt every word of that. Yeah. It was kind of his, his swan song, just kind of go out with it. And that's how I felt, and I don't think he lived too much longer after that.
No, I think you might be right, but I know exactly what you mean. The first time I heard that, and I did know it was a cover, only because I think I heard it on the radio, and they were saying it was a cover at the time. I'm not familiar with the original. I have heard it since, but wow, yeah, that is one of those ones that is far superior to the original. It's absolutely fantastic song, guys. I'm gonna, just before we close, let's just quickly go around, chuck out one cover that everybody should listen to and should love. Just quickly, who wants to go first? Do you want me to go first?
You go first, yeah.
Go on then.
You go.
Oh, and I'm going to insult an entire nation now while I try and pronounce this guy's surname. Over the Rainbow, Israel Kakao, that one. I pronounced it terribly. Hawaii or wherever you're from, I can't remember. I apologize. I've made it worse. But yeah, that version, Somewhere Over the Rainbow, you must know that one by the big Judy Garland. Judy Garland did it originally, obviously.
Yeah, but there was a really famous cover, and it was a woman.
This is a very large, either Hawaiian or Samoan fellow singing it, and it is absolutely phenomenal. And I would recommend, if you've not heard it, Gary, you may not have heard it, I would suggest you go listen to it, because I think you would really, really enjoy it.
I think I have. But if you ask me who it was, it's just something now when you've said, I think I might have heard it. And I'm trying to think of who. I'll have to have a quick look now, but somebody did another Over the Rainbow, and it got quite a lot of traction. It was quite a heartfelt, I don't know whether they released it in America, but it was like a bit of a sob story. Was it? Who was the lady that released it? She died quite soon after, and then became famous almost posthumously, and she did it. I'll Google it in a minute. You guys talk about you, and I'll Google it and find out for you.
Go on. Who wants to go next then? Chuck one out that everybody must listen to.
So in America, one of the biggest country singers of all time is Garth Brooks. He's done a lot of covers, and some of them I didn't know were covers until afterwards again. And one of those was Billy Joel's "Shameless." And after I heard, and I like the Garth Brooks song, but after I went back and listened to the Billy Joel version, I think Billy Joel version is much better, just way better. In my opinion, it's way better than the Garth Brooks version, which is probably unpopular for a lot of people. But I would say anybody in America or anybody who's heard the Garth Brooks version, please go back and listen to the original from Billy Joel, and I think you'll get a new appreciation for it.
I've just had a look, and it's Eva Cassidy was the name of the lady that I couldn't.
Oh, okay.
And she did and actually when I searched for Somewhere Over the Rainbow cover, the big sort of Simone Hawaiian guys like this on the front. I have heard that version and it is decent, but I haven't heard it for donkey's years. So
The gem.
yeah.
Go on, Kevin. Chew one out there for us.
I guess one that I like now is Whiskey in a Jar. Thin Lizzy back in the day has been recently or since then covered by Metallica. Their version is really good. I think it's one of those things. You kind of are a Metallica fan or you're not. It's, they do their own grip on music. Some of their stuff I like. The speed metal stuff I'm really not a fan of, but I thought they did a really good version of this. Just one of them things.
Yeah, fair. Well, I've not heard that one either. Interesting. I don't mind Metallica. I would say I'm probably not their biggest fan, but Enter Sandman and that other tune off that Black album was an absolute gem. Nothing else matters. That's what I'm thinking of. Those are two absolute gems of tunes. Go on, guys. Chuck one out before we say our goodbyes.
There's actually there's a couple. So if you haven't heard, I'm a bit of a Simon and Garfunkel fan, but if you haven't heard the Disturbed, the Sound of Silence cover, really good, and it done in a completely different way than Simon and Garfunkel, and the guys, the tone is very, very almost like guttural, but yeah, that's a really decent version. If you haven't heard it, I'd go sort of say check it out. And there's actually, if you go onto YouTube, there's a guy called Caleb Hiles, and he does lots of covers, and he's basically, I think he's just sort of a heavy metal stroke soft metal sort of front man, and he does loads and loads and loads of covers, and his voice, his range is extraordinary, and he does loads and loads and loads of decent covers. But yeah, that Simon Garfunkel is worth listening to if you haven't.
Interesting you say that. So we talked about, you mentioned some of those famous for doing covers. There's one guy out there who's really, really famous for doing covers, and I'm amazed nobody's mentioned him. William Shatner. No?
Not having it, dude.
Why are you laughing?
Not having it. I could throw out there the take that cover of Could It Be Magic from Barry Manilow or whatever, but Adam Space. I'm not sure whether he was disdained at the take that version or the Barry Manilow version there, if I'm honest, but there we go.
Both, just
for I knew you were going to say that, yeah.
So I'm going to give a quick shout out to our sponsors because now seems the time to do that. So if you are interested in picking up some olives, some nuts, some pretzels, or some chocolate covered pretzels, head over to ollies-ollies.com. And if you use the promo code TALLBOYRADIO, all capitals, all one word, as long as you are based in the UK, you will get 20% discount off your order. And with every order placed on their website, they donate a school meal to a child in need with the help of One Feeds Two. So, guys, this hour is absolutely whipped by. We're actually over the hour mark by a stretch. Yeah. So, honestly, thank you very much for coming on. I'm not sure we've put the argument to bed whether covers are valid or not. I think that they are. I think we've discovered that they probably are. Kevin, been an absolute pleasure to meet you. I'm looking forward to hopefully meeting you in the person later in the year, as long as, like I say, our good friend Mr. Biden takes care of things and I'm able to come and visit and everything's tickety-boo. But yeah, been great to have you on here and hear your eclectic taste. Interesting enough, you were the first man to mention the Smiths, not me.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you. So we'll go around the room and we'll say our goodbyes. We'll leave it to our guests first. Bo, go on. You want to say your goodbyes to our listeners, seeing as we opened it up with your dulcet tones with the accordion you left for us?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I appreciate this, and Kevin being on, he's such a he's opened me up to a lot of music as well. So, and just the fact that he knows so much other music, it's good having him on. Tonight I'm not drinking any alcohol because I'm still 0.10 from last night. So I'm trying to get myself together for work tomorrow. So I appreciate you having me on. Thanks.
Fair play, fair play. Kevin?
Thank you, gentlemen, for having me on. This was my very first. And I take it from Bo's comment that we're supposed to introduce what it is that we're drinking. PBR. I'll get you some when you come over.
Yes.
Not the choice of everybody, but it is mine.
No.
Thanks again, guys, for having me.
Absolute pleasure, absolute pleasure. Fun enough, I have PBR on the podcast on episode 166 because we have some friends which inspired us to do the podcast in the first place, guys, called Tiddy and Shiner, and they're very, very famous. They're based in Oklahoma, and they're very famous for their enjoying PBR. So they did 166 episodes of their podcast. So on episode 166, I was drinking PBR. Gaza?
Love the episode, as you said. It's whipped by the sort of hour. I suppose we could carry on for another hour, really, which sort of leads down the age-old sort of route of, well, we need to do another one then, because I don't think we have put it to bed. But it's been an absolute pleasure having the two guys on. Bo, great to see you again, great to chat. Kevin, great to meet you. I hope we can sort of do it again sometime. And I'm sort of still slightly recovering from last night as well, so I was actually drinking tea today, as I say, ready for work tomorrow. So yeah, I'm taking leaf out of your book, Bo.
Fair play. Fair play. Well, I'll tell you what I'm drinking, dude. And I'll tell you what, I've not been as disappointed in a beer in a long, long time. So this has been sat in my cupboard for a while. Mikkeller, yeah? So normally make really, really good beers. And this is an evergreen hazy IPA. It's literally one of the worst beers I've ever had. And I don't know how long. It just basically, I might as well have drank tea with you and I bloody ate tea. And then I've had a Vocation Toucan Tropic DDH IPA. And I can tell you, that was much, much better. So that just leaves it to me to say thank you guys for joining us. Thank you out there for listening. If you've enjoyed listening to myself and Bo, we're actually guesting on another podcast coming very, very soon. Unfiltered Discussions with Brian Howard. We're recording that on the 21st of May. We're telling that rather unique story of ours. So hopefully you'll get to hear a different spin, somebody experiencing it for the first time and asking questions of us. So that should be interesting. But it just leaves it to me to say thank you. Good night. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you again next week.